This is Katie, co-host of Coffee with Keith and Katie. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hi, everybody. This is Baxter Colburn from Public House Media. From all of us here at PHM, we'd like to thank you for your support and wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
This is Ryan Pierce, host of Completely Serious here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Completely Serious, where we talk about sports and have fun with great guests. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Completely Serious. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello and welcome to Loud and Proud, a show about disability, by disability, and for disability. As always, thanks to Public House Media for providing us with this platform to have the show. I am your host, Nicole Kelly. I myself was born with only one hand, and I have spent the past few years of my life traveling and speaking at schools and universities across the country on the topic of disability. Do you live with a disability? If so, hello, and welcome to a place where you can get connected with experts in our community, find thought leaders who are making changes and speaking out. Remember to hit subscribe, as you will want to remember every Monday night when Loud and Proud is actually going live on Facebook. For those of you who will be listening, be sure to hit subscribe on whatever app you are listening to us on, because you will want to also hang out with us in the future, because I have super amazing, cool guests who will be joining us. So feel free to share if anything I say or anything my guest says resonates with you. The goal of this entire show is to educate, and the more people who watch, the more people we educate through the awesome power of conversation. We're going to educate you with conversation. Great. So let's get on to the highlight. Tonight on the show, we are talking with an actor, director, artist extraordinaire, and we're going to bring him up to the broadcast, Mr. David Harrell!
What's up?
You told me you were going to do that, and you did it so much cooler. Yes.
Oh, yeah?
You get 5. You're starting the show off strong with 500 points.
Oh, my gosh.
What these points mean, it's just like, whose line is it anyway? These points mean nothing, but still you just got 500 of them.
But can I lose like 400 if I say something wrong?
Yes.
Darn.
I'm not sure how or what you could say, but yes.
Let's hope the points increase.
Let's hope they increase. Let's start, David, by can you tell us where you are and a little bit about what disability you live with? Sure.
I am in my nice, humble abode in Astoria, Queens. See my Christmas tree. Astoria, Queens, right, just in New York City. And I was also a congenital hand amputee. I was born without my right hand.
Do you have your wrist, David?
I do. I do have a wrist. I have 5 little fingers, too.
Oh, you do have your finger buds.
Yeah.
Fun fact, they cut mine off.
Before when you were really young?
Yeah, but because I don't have a wrist, they would have never fully formed into absolutely anything useful.
Right.
So anyway, but yes, they did actually take away my finger buds. Are your finger buds useful?
Actually, when I tie my shoe, I wrap my lace around my thumb, and I am able to kind of hold a little on my wrist, and that sort of helps me tie my shoe. Also, as a kid, I would color my fingers in and pretend that it was Mr. T, and I would talk to Mr. T and have conversations with Mr. T. So that was another positive thing about my fingers.
I couldn't love that more. Another 10 points for that. Another 10 points for Mr. T. You yourself, you're an artist. Can you tell us a little bit in in short form, what it is that you've done, what it is that you're passionate about working on, what kind of artist do you consider yourself?
I think I identify as an actor, first and foremost. So what my training is, that's what I sort of started trying to do, is be an actor. And so, I think I also have written a couple of solo plays, but, certainly, sorry, I just had a pop-up on my computer. Yeah.
That's okay.
But yeah, acting is kind of what I tend to do and would like to, I think best identifies me.
What you like to do. I'm wondering, this is a two-parter. How has your disability affected the way in which you walk in the world, the way in which you exist in the world? Mm-hmm. And then with that, I'm going to add on the second question so you can kind of be thinking and answering and such. Then how does art affect that? Or what does it do to enhance or take away? Or how does art then play into your role in this world as well?
Sure. I think so. Okay. I think what's interesting is I'm still waiting for you to email me that conversation piece from the Kennedy Center that you did, because you talk so eloquently about your childhood and how disability wasn't in your vocabulary. And I think I had a very similar experience too, where it wasn't really thought about for me. And so I didn't think of myself as a person with a disability until much older. And I think it began with this idea of a communal experience that if you go generations back, people like us would have obviously had to hide. We would have maybe been abandoned. We would have, and if you go further back, we would have been left to elements, much like a lot of our brothers and sisters in this disability community. So I think there was a consciousness raised as I became an adult, and sort of this realization of community. The people not exactly like me, but people that had this same sort of life experience throughout time and space and history in a way, and the sense of being different. And I think as I was younger, I probably thought of hiding it more. I didn't want it to be about my hand. I didn't want to identify as a one-handed person. I remember getting a book called Great Left-Handers of the World, and I could sort of join that club. Like I was cool to be a left-handed person. So if I did that, then I didn't have to be a one-handed person. And so I think that was kind of the experience. I think now, and I think my art has a little bit to do with that. I think the mantra I had as a young actor was that I would give an audience 5 minutes to see my hand, to notice it. And then it was my job to do something or to be something so much more interesting that they forgot about it, But I always put the onus on me that it was my job to make you forget. And now I've changed that to, I don't want you to forget about it. I just want it to exist.
Yeah.
It's got to be just part of the tapestry. But so now my goal is, as an actor, it's my job to transcend in some way that you see an inner humanity outside of physical difference. And so therefore you connect on a more human level. And if I'm able to do that, then that is sort of my job as an actor and as an artist, is to remind us of our shared humanity. Does that sound keep popping up, my little bing for emails?
No, I'm not hearing it anyway.
Good. Not as though I'm popular.
No, that was so beautifully said. And I am losing 400 points for never have sending you that post tonight. So I am by far losing here.
It's not a competition.
Yeah. I mean, but is it? I don't know. But you're winning. Yeah, no, I think that's eloquently said. And what really caught me about what you said specifically was in being an actor, letting the audience observe, letting them see, and then finding something that makes you so much more interesting. But interesting means so much more just like them or just like humanistic. It's a part of, yes, what you said, part of that tapestry. I'm just repeating back what you said, but it was lovely. So I think that's amazing.
But it's also a challenge because right now we don't see that, you know? I mean, if we see disability in really any aspect of media, and you talk about this all the time too, it tends to be a sense of inspiration. It seems to be about, oh, look at this, you know, what, I mean, in most press that's done, I think probably very similar to you. It was always, wow, this kid is a quarterback on his high school football team, despite the fact of having one hand, or this guy was in a high school musical, or this guy did this, or this guy is, you know, doing this in spite of. And so that tends to always be the narrative. And then I think the characters we see often reflect that same idea, that there is, that it informs that character more than it's maybe necessary, that there are other elements of life and other elements of the lived experience that certainly influence me more than my disability. So it's also, I think, a challenge for us to create characters that we see a wider reflection of who they are, and that but disability plays such an important role. I think. Did you read the Jim Abbott book?
Actually, just this year I read it. Yeah, I finally did. I finally sat down and read it.
It was so great about it because he's like, of course, like every one-handed person, you know, kid, you know, he's like a superhero. But he articulated something in a way. He said something like, you know, some days it means everything, and other days it means nothing at all. And I think that was so well said.
I can tell you exactly where he said that because it resonated so much with me as well. He actually said that in the very first chapter of his book. Okay. And that specific line for me was the same as well. For those of you listening who maybe don't know who Jim Abbott is, he was, no, that's okay. He's in the one-handed world, the most rock star of all the rock stars. He was a pitcher for the Yankees and, pitched with one hand.
California Angels first, Yankees a little bit, but he did pitch a very important game for the New York Yankees. And everybody up here.
Fair clarification.
I know Jim Abbott. Me and Jim Abbott are like this. And I'm like, step off, Yankee fan.
I love it. Because it truly is so much of our identity, yet not part of our identity. I kind of liken it to my roommates and I actually were joking about it just tonight, where there is a distinction between Nikki Kelly and Nicole Kelly. And Nicole Kelly is the public persona of who I am and my very business minded and very much, you know, is a certain person, whereas Nikki Kelly is another person. And it almost is as if disability sort of plays that same role, where it can be a whole part of my conversation, but the goal is always to get people to see past the Nicole Kelly to the Nikki Kelly. I don't know if that made sense, but it really is almost compartmentalized for me, where I can go back and forth between talking about it or not, but I am very good at controlling the conversation. Do you find that you're good at controlling the conversation around your hand?
I don't know. Sometimes I think it's what's weird, I think, is because my work is at least the predominant amount of the work I do is focused on it. I mean, I wrote 2 solo plays that I tour and do a lot, and I have a speaking keynote, you know, that kind of is my show on speaker drugs. To book him, go to davidharrellonline.com. It happens to be up. Okay, go on. Sorry. And so because it's there most of the time, it's hard to try to control it. I think because I have a certain voice and ability to try to control that narrative, at least in the show, it works, but I still feel like if people write about it, people talk about it, it's like David Harrell, who was born without his hand, blah, 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 blah. But the nature of those shows is about my lived experience. And so that is part of my lived experience. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Yeah. And I love that. I feel like the difference between those who have kind of come to terms with that word disability and joining the disability community proudly is when they talk like we're talking, there's a piece that I feel like we've found where we understand that it's a part of it and that it's part of our job and our duty is to talk about it, but it doesn't. Right. Yeah. Well,
I think there's a sense of, I think it's pride too. And I think that's sort of kind of what came out of the thing I haven't read again because you haven't sent it to me.
Minus 400 points again. I'm now negative 800.
But I think, and I started thinking about that too. I started thinking about this idea of like, because it's not a perfect word, I think and there's so many, I think the immediate thought, especially the people who don't have disabilities or especially to parents who may have a child. And I think I see this sometimes a lot in limb difference communities too. It's, my kid's not disabled. My kid's not, my kid does amazing things. You see what my kid does. My kid is fantastic and all these, and I absolutely understand that your kid is amazing and fantastic and has unlimited potential. But the thought that you have comes from years and years and years and years of people that look like your kid having to fight to prove that and sort of change the consciousness. And so instead of thinking of it in this medical way about, if you say disability, you're saying my kid can't, or you're saying, there's something medically wrong, that you look that broader social model. And there's so many more conversations we could have about that. But I think it just made sense to me that it's trying to, educate yourself a little bit about what that history really is and how, because of that history, you're able to see that potential in your kid. You're able to see that. And that kid is able to really sort of believe like, holy crap, the things that I'm doing, the way that I'm adapting, the way I'm navigating the world is actually right. And it's actually moving me forward. And there are people who've come before me that have opened up that idea.
That hugely was my experience for sure, right. is connecting with the history, connecting with people in generations before me who went through fights I haven't had to fight. Mm-hmm. But I wish I had the quote pulled up right now, and I'm going to find it and I'll post it in the comments and send it to you. But Lawrence Carter Long is an amazing advocate, mm-hmm. and he just writes the most profoundly, just everything he writes is amazing. And he has a quote that says to own something like, yet again, I don't have it pulled up, but to own the word disability is to take pride in the history of those who had come before you, who did have to fight, who did have to do the things that you don't necessarily have to do. But it's just to take that acknowledgement and be proud of the fact that you were a part of that group of people. And right. I couldn't be more proud.
Right.
So I just love talking to people who are on the same page with me as that, I guess.
Yeah. And I think, it's a hard page to get to sometimes. And I think but it's always important, I think, just to sort of take that step back and sort of say, when we're talking socially, or we're talking this sort of that social idea, model, or communal experience, shared experience, that it's a lot of history that goes back, and it's a cool thing to be a part of, and that we're able to have the conversations we're having now. Yeah.
Amazing.
And Lawrence is a cool kid. He's a cool guy. I just had a film that screened at Superfest in San Francisco, which is the oldest.
Good transition. I was going to say, let's talk about your work now. I'm sorry we went on to that. So yes, sorry, that was a bad throw from me, but please go. And I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No. A film, and we'll talk about that later, but it was Lawrence moderated the panel. So it was nice to see him again. And I of course knew him in New York. And
sure.
yeah, he's a very smart guy, and I like the work he's doing. He's doing important work.
Agreed. Yeah. So tell us what you're working on. What do you like to do? Tell us about the Easterseals Disability Challenge. I know that's important in your life, and you've done some cool things there. Tell us what you're up to.
Sure. There's a very cool thing called the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge, and it's started by a guy named Nick Novicki. He's a friend of mine. He's a little person. He's an actor, comedian in Los Angeles, and he thought, like, what are ways that we can put more disability-themed content in the world? And so he created this short film festival. So it's a challenge in that you have to make a short film in 48 hours. So,
cool.
You get your crew together and your actors, and you film it, you edit it, and it's done. And they have some really cool prizes and some really cool people that you get to meet in the industry. And it's also just a place to kind of have fun. So you don't have to be a professional necessarily to do it. You can make it with an iPhone. You can just get some group of friends together that, you come up with a great story. You want to tell a story or want to create a story. And so I did a film in 2016 called Lefty and Lucy, and it won Best Film and screened in Los Angeles. And then I won an award with a film festival in Australia called Focus on Ability, and won a 3-week trip to go to Australia to take some classes and do some other cool stuff. And so I was able to take my family there. It was really sweet. And then this past year, 2017, I won Best Filmmaker, not myself, my director who I brought in.
Sure.
Won Best Filmmaker. But I got to go out to the screenings in Los Angeles. And then Lefty and Lucy also screened at Superfest, which is the oldest disability-themed film festival in the, I assume, the world. But it was the country.
Amazing.
So it was great. Superfest was great too, because there's so many, it takes place like at UC Berkeley, or where a lot of disability studies and a lot of that stuff is really kind of developed. So it was cool to be out there and kind of meet some of those advocates and those folks.
Yeah. What does it feel like to be in that celebratory space where not only you're doing work, but you're showing film and you're surrounded by others who are advocates and who are celebrating? What is that like?
It was cool. I think it was cool to celebrate. I think authentic stories. I think I'd love to continue to see more authentic disability portrayals in narrative films. It seems like right now we just see a lot of documentaries mostly, which are important. And I think those stories are important to tell. But I think as artists and actors and professionals, we can continue to do better to try to create that content and put out, our stories in ways that we want to see them told, and hopefully find a niche and find an audience and find ways to kind of move and grow them.
I'm all about it.
Sense.
It absolutely does. Thank you again for the work that you do. A reminder, if you're out there and you have a kiddo who is looking for some sort of program to run, David has got your back. David can come and do what are the titles of yours? I know I'll try to say it and I'll say it wrong, so I don't want to say it wrong. Tell them the
show titles.
Yeah, when you go into schools.
Oh, right. I've got my 2 solo shows that I do. I have one called Little Potato and Hard to Peel, which is based off a story my grandfather used to tell me. And then the second one is called The Boy Who Would Be Captain Hook. And it sort of focuses on a sort of fictional account of my experience in the playgrounds. I wore a prosthetic hook until I was in 5th grade. And so whenever I met new kids or kind of, entered a new space, people were always afraid of me, and they didn't know how I would play sports or how I would play games. And of course I was picked on. I was called Captain Hook a lot. And so I sort of took those stories and made a play about a kid who all he wants to do is be included on the playground. And when he's finally included, he has to be Captain Hook. But and at first that's awesome, but then he really wants to be a hero. And how could Captain Hook be a hero? And when he sees that maybe that's not a possibility. He has to go on this journey to figure out like all the other things he can do and adapt and figure out a way to and learn and also teach the other kids that there's many different parts to all of us.
Well, I'm just so proud of the work that you're doing. I know I was saying it before the broadcast, but it's so important. And my personal favorites are the minis that I get to go talk to. So anyone who also enjoys minis gets an A+ in my book. So another 400 points for you. You know, that's 810 to negative 800. Not that we're keeping score.
I don't see a scoreboard.
But I also want to be respectful of your time. So David, thank you so much for coming and chatting and just
thank you for doing this
openly and honestly. Yeah, I just am so thankful to have cool friends who are willing to come and share their time with me and share their energy with me. So thank you so much for chatting. And thank you to those who have stopped by to watch and to listen. Yet again, let me put up David's website one more time so we can have that again. So you can find him and contact him whenever you need. David, I will be in New York City the 3rd week of January. So I will be finding you.
Totally. We were supposed to have coffee like 8 times in the last 3 years.
I'm sure that's true. I'm also sure that's true. Another negative 800 points for me.
Well, no, it's probably me too. But yeah, let me know, and Davey and I maybe can meet you. He can't drink coffee yet, but he can
drink would love nothing more
chocolate milk.
Yes, I would. Can I have chocolate milk too?
You can do. Yeah, we'll all have chocolate milk.
Okay, great. I love it. Cool. Yet again, thank you so much for spending your time with us. Thank you again to Public House Media for allowing us to have this space in which to chat. We will see you again next week. I am doing a show on Christmas, and I'm for sure that one of the people watching is my father. And Dad, you don't know it yet, but you're my guest next week. Mom and Dad, we're going to be talking on Christmas about what it is like to have a child who is born with a difference. What does that feel like? What is that going to be like? So join us on Christmas. I also will be in Orlando with my extended family, so perhaps there will be a sing-along. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing ideas out there, and it could be fun. So we will see you next week. Again, David, thank you so much, and have an awesome holiday, everyone.
Happy holidays.